The groom whispered, "Worthless," and walked away mid-vows, leaving the bride frozen at the altar. Before the shock could settle, the church doors exploded open. A Mafia boss strode in with a convoy of black SUVs and announced, "This wedding won't end. It just changes grooms." What happened next turned her worst nightmare into something far more dangerous. Elena Martinez had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but never like this. The St. Catherine's Cathedral was packed with 300 guests, their faces turned toward her like flowers following the sun. White roses cascaded from every surface. The string quartet played softly. Her dress, a custom Vera Wang that had taken 6 months to create, fit perfectly. Everything was perfect, except for the man standing across from her. Michael Chun, her fiancé of 2 years, hadn't met her eyes once during the ceremony. His jaw was clenched tight, and a thin line of sweat traced down his temple despite the cool air conditioning. Elena told herself it was just nerves. Everyone got nervous. "Do you, Michael Chun, take Elena Martinez to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Father O'Brien's voice echoed through the vaulted ceiling. Michael's mouth opened, then closed. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. "Michael?" Elena whispered, her smile faltering. He finally looked at her. What she saw in his eyes made her stomach drop. Not love, not even regret. Just cold, hard disgust. "I can't do this," he said quietly. The words hung in the air like smoke. Elena heard someone gasp behind her. The violin stuttered to a stop. "What?" Her voice came out small, childlike. Michael leaned forward, close enough that only she could hear. "You're worthless, Elena. Your family's broke, your company's dying, and I'm not going down with you. I deserve better than this." The slap of his words hit harder than any physical blow could have. Elena's vision tunneled. The hundreds of faces blurred into a watercolor mess of shock and pity. She saw her mother stand up, hand pressed to her mouth. Her younger brother Marco's face had gone sheet white. Michael turned on his heel and walked down the aisle. Just like that. His footsteps on the marble floor were the only sound in the enormous church. Elena stood frozen at the altar, her bouquet trembling in her hands, her veil suddenly feeling like a death shroud. The whispers started immediately, a low buzz of horror and excitement, because nothing brought people together like watching someone else's life fall apart. Oh my God. Did he just? The Martinez family must be. Elena wanted to run, wanted to disappear, wanted to wake up from this nightmare. But her legs wouldn't move. She just stood there, a bride abandoned at the altar, while 300 people watched her world collapse. Then the church doors exploded open. Not literally, but the force of them slamming against the stone walls made everyone jump. The sound reverberated through the cathedral like a gunshot. A man stood in the entrance, backlit by the afternoon sun streaming through the doorway. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black suit that probably cost more than Elena's dress. Dark hair swept back from a face carved from granite, strong jaw, sharp cheekbones, and eyes so dark they looked black even from a distance. He didn't walk down the aisle. He strode, with the kind of confidence that made people unconsciously step back. Behind him, through the open doors, Elena could see them. Black SUVs. Dozens of them, lined up along the street like a presidential motorcade, stretching as far as she could see. The man stopped at the altar. He looked at Father O'Brien, then at Elena, then back at the priest. Up close, Elena could see he was younger than she'd first thought, maybe 35. His eyes swept over her once, cataloging everything, then settled on her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. "This wedding won't end," he said. His voice was deep, smooth, with the faintest trace of a New York accent. "It just changes grooms." The cathedral erupted. People shouted questions. Her mother screamed. Someone, probably her cousin Sophia, started crying. Father O'Brien sputtered something about the sanctity of the church. The man ignored all of it. He extended his hand to Elena. "Dante Russo," he said simply. And you're going to marry me instead. Elena stared at his hand like it was a snake. Her mind couldn't process what was happening. 5 minutes ago, she'd been a bride. Then she'd been nothing. Now this stranger was proposing marriage in front of everyone she'd ever known. I don't know you, she managed. No, Dante agreed. But your father knew me, and your family's debt to my organization is now your debt. So you have two choices, Elena. He stepped closer, and she caught the scent of expensive cologne and something darker. Danger, maybe. You can walk out of here alone, humiliated, and watch your family lose everything by Monday morning. Or you can take my hand, finish the ceremony, and I'll make sure the Martinez name means something again. This is insane, Elena breathed. This is business. His hand didn't waver. What's it going to be? Elena looked past him at the sea of faces. Her mother was crying. Marco looked terrified. The guests were pulling out their phones, already texting, posting, making this disaster viral. Michael was probably halfway to the airport by now. Her entire life had just been destroyed in front of 300 witnesses. What did she have left to lose? Elena dropped her bouquet. The white roses scattered across the marble floor. She looked into Dante Russo's unfathomable dark eyes and placed her trembling hand in his. His fingers closed around hers. Warm, strong, absolutely certain. Smart choice, he murmured. Then he turned to Father O'Brien, who looked like he might faint. Start over from the beginning, Father. And make it quick. I have business to attend to. The reception hall felt like a fever dream. Elena sat at the head table, a gold wedding band she'd never seen before suddenly heavy on her finger. The guests mingled awkwardly, unsure whether to celebrate or mourn. Half of them kept staring at her new husband like he was a loaded gun. The other half pretended everything was normal, which was somehow worse. Dante sat beside her, utterly relaxed. He'd barely touched his food, but his champagne glass never seemed empty. Men in dark suits, his men, stood at every exit. Not threatening, exactly. Just present. You should eat something, Dante said without looking at her. You're pale. I just married a complete stranger, Elena hissed. Forgive me if I've lost my appetite. You married a solution to your problems. He finally turned to face her, and the intensity in his eyes made her lean back slightly. Would you prefer I'd let Michael humiliate you and walked away? I'd prefer to understand what the hell is happening. Dante set down his glass. Come with me. He stood and offered his hand again, the second time today. Elena glanced around. Her mother was crying on her aunt's shoulder. Marco was drinking heavily at the bar, his tie already loosened. No one was paying attention to her anymore. They were all too busy gossiping. She took Dante's hand and let him lead her out of the main hall into a smaller room, the bride's suite where she'd gotten ready this morning. It felt like a lifetime ago. The moment the door closed, Dante's entire demeanor changed. The casual confidence fell away, replaced by something sharper, more dangerous. Your father's company, Martinez Logistics, handles shipping contracts across the East Coast, he began, pacing to the window. 3 years ago, he borrowed $15 million from my organization to expand operations. The terms were clear, 10% return, paid quarterly. Elena's stomach dropped. My father never mentioned. Your father died 6 months ago. Dante's voice was matter-of-fact. Heart attack. You inherited the company along with your brother. The debt came with it. She had known her father's company was struggling. She'd been helping Marco manage it, trying to keep things afloat. But $15 million? That explained why the books never quite made sense. Why there were accounts she couldn't access. We've been paying, Elena said weakly. You've been missing payments, Dante turned to face her. 3 in the last 4 months. That puts you in default. And when people default on debts to me, there are consequences. So this is about money? The shock was wearing off, replaced by a cold, sick understanding. You married me to collect a debt. I married you to secure an asset. He moved closer and Elena forced herself not to back away. Your company's shipping routes are valuable. Your family name still carries weight in certain circles. And your brother, his jaw tightened slightly. Your brother has been making very stupid decisions. What's that supposed to mean? It means Michael didn't abandon you on a whim. Dante pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and held it up to her. Elena stared at the image. It was a bank transfer. $250,000 sent to Michael Chen's account 3 days ago. The sender's name made her blood run cold. Vittorio Calabrese. Who is that? But even as she asked, she knew. Everyone in the city knew the Calabrese family. They were rivals to the Russos, competitors in the same shadowy world of money and power that most people pretended didn't exist. Vittorio is my competition, Dante said flatly. He paid your fiancé to humiliate you at the altar, to shame the Martinez names so badly that your remaining business partners would abandon you. Then he'd swoop in, buy your company for pennies, and suddenly control half the East Coast shipping routes. He pocketed his phone. I couldn't let that happen. Elena's mind was reeling. Michael hadn't left her because she wasn't good enough. He'd been bribed, paid to destroy her. The betrayal somehow hurt more knowing it was calculated. So you, what? You showed up and married me to beat Vittorio to the punch. She laughed, but it came out bitter. I went from one transaction to another. Yes, Dante said simply. But I'm being honest with you. Michael wasn't. And the Calabreses sure as hell won't be. He moved to the small bar cart and poured 2 glasses of whiskey. He handed one to Elena. She took it automatically. Here's the truth, Elena. Dante raised his glass. I don't need a wife for love. I need a partner who understands the stakes. Your family owes me $15 million. Your company is bleeding money. Your brother is in over his head. And there are people out there who want to see all of you destroyed. Why would you help us?
Elena whispered.
Because helping you helps me. He drained his whiskey in one swallow. Your shipping routes connect to my distribution networks. Your family's reputation, once I restore it, legitimizes certain operations. And having you as my wife sends a message to every rival family that the Russos don't just win. We take everything. Elena looked down at the wedding band on her finger. Not a gift. A collar. So, I'm not your wife, she said quietly. I'm your property. Dante's expression didn't change. You're my investment. What you become beyond that is up to you. He walked to the door, then paused with his hand on the handle. One more thing, he said. Smile when we go back out there. The cameras are still rolling, and I need everyone to believe this is a love story.
Can you do that?
Elena met his eyes. Behind them, she could see the gears turning, calculating, always strategizing. This man had just bought her entire life. But he'd also saved her from complete destruction. She drained her whiskey, feeling it burn down her throat, and nodded. I can do that. Good. Dante opened the door. Welcome to the family business, Mrs. Russo. 3 days into her marriage, Elena learned that Dante Russo's mansion wasn't a home. It was a fortress. 20-foot walls surrounded the property in Greenwich, Connecticut. Security cameras tracked every angle. Men in suits patrolled the grounds at all hours. Her new bedroom, separate from Dante's, thankfully, had a panic button beside the bed and bulletproof windows. It's for your protection, Dante had said when she'd asked about it. Protection from what, he didn't specify. Elena sat at the breakfast table, picking at her omelet while scrolling through her phone. The wedding disaster had gone viral. Hashtag #ultraabandonment was trending. Someone had posted a video of Michael walking out, and another of Dante's dramatic entrance. The comments were vicious. She got upgraded from basic to Mafia queen. Plot twist of the century. That's not romance, that's a hostile takeover. She set her phone down, appetite gone completely. Mrs. Russo, a man appeared in the doorway, late 50s, gray hair slicked back, wearing a suit that screamed old money. His eyes were cold and assessing. I'm Vincent Caruso, Mr. Russo's consigliere. Elena recognized the title. She'd seen enough movies to know a consigliere was an advisor. A right-hand man. Someone who helped run the organization. Nice to meet you, she said carefully. Vincent didn't smile. I need to ask you some questions about your brother. Her stomach tightened.
Marco?
What about him? When did you last speak with him? Yesterday. He called to check on me. It had been an awkward conversation. Marco had been drunk, slurring apologies about the wedding, about their father, about everything. Elena had told him it was fine, even though it wasn't. Vincent pulled out a tablet and slid it across the table. These are his financial records from the past 6 months. Elena scanned the screen. Her blood ran cold. Charges at Atlantic City casinos, online poker sites, sports betting apps. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, all losses. Marco's gambling? Her voice came out strangled. Marco's drowning. Vincent took the tablet back. He owes money to people who don't accept apologies as payment. And desperate men make dangerous choices. What are you saying? Vincent's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Suspicion. I'm saying your brother is a liability. And by extension, so are you. Before Elena could respond, Vincent's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then stood. Excuse me. We'll continue this conversation later. He left, and Elena sat frozen at the table. Marco had a gambling problem. A serious one. And Vincent thought she was. What? Covering for him? Working with him? She needed to talk to her brother.
Now.
That afternoon, Elena found herself wandering the mansion's east wing, looking for a quiet place to call Marco. The house was massive, 12 bedrooms, a home theater, an indoor pool. She'd only seen half of it. She was passing a study when she heard voices inside. The door was slightly ajar. Can't trust her, that was Vincent's voice. The timing is too convenient. Explained. Dante's voice was calm, but carried an edge. The girl shows up with a desperate brother, a failing company, and connections to legitimate businesses we need. Vincent sounded frustrated. Then suddenly she's your wife. What if the Calabreses planted her? What if this whole altar disaster was staged to get her inside our organization? Elena's breath caught. She pressed herself against the wall, heart hammering. Elena didn't choose to marry me, Dante said. I chose her.
Exactly.
Which means you acted emotionally instead of strategically. You saw a beautiful woman in distress and… Watch yourself, Vincent. Danger laced every word. A pause. Then Vincent continued, more carefully. I'm saying we need to be cautious. The brothers' gambling debts are real. But who's collecting? 3 days ago, Marco Martinez deposited $50,000 into his account. Want to guess where it came from? Silence. Elena's nails dug into her palms. A shell company, Vincent continued. One that traces back to Calabrese operations. Your new brother-in-law is taking money from our enemies, Dante. Which means either he's betraying us or she is. Find out which, Dante said flatly. But don't touch her until we know for certain. And if she's the leak. Another pause. Longer this time. Then we handle it, Dante said. The same way we handle all leaks. Elena didn't wait to hear more. She walked quickly down the hallway, forcing herself not to run, her mind spinning. Marco was taking money from the Calabreses. The same family that had paid Michael to humiliate her. The same family that wanted to destroy the Russos. And now Vincent thought she was a spy. She made it to her room and locked the door, sliding down against it. Her hands were shaking. This wasn't just about debt anymore. This was about survival. If Dante's people thought she was working against them, if they believed she was planted to sabotage the organization. Vincent's words echoed in her head. Then we handle it. The same way we handle all leaks. She wasn't naive. She knew what that meant. Elena pulled out her phone and called Marco. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same thing. Come on, Marco, she whispered. Pick up. Please. On the 4th try, he answered.
Elena?
What's wrong? Everything. She kept her voice low. Marco, tell me the truth. Are you taking money from the Calabrese family? The silence on the other end told her everything she needed to know. Oh God, Marco. What did you do? They said they'd kill me. Marco's voice cracked. I owed 200 grand to a bookie. They were going to break my legs, Elena. The Calabreses offered to pay it off if I fed them some information about Dante's operations. Elena closed her eyes. What kind of information? Nothing important. Just shipping schedules, route changes, stuff you'd mentioned. You used me? Horror washed over her. You made me look like a traitor? I didn't mean, Elena, I'm sorry, She hung up. Her brother had sold her out to save his own skin. And now she was living in a house full of people who thought she was the enemy. Elena looked at the panic button beside her bed. She'd thought being Dante's wife made her safe. She was starting to realize it might have made her a target. Elena didn't sleep that night. She paced her room, mind racing through possibilities. Should she tell Dante about Marco? Would he believe her? Or would he think she was covering her tracks? By dawn, she'd made a decision. She couldn't control what her brother had done, but she could control what she did next. At 7 a.m., a knock came at her door. One of Dante's men, a younger guy named Tony, stood in the hallway. Mr. Russo wants to see you. In his office.
Now.
Elena's heart hammered, but she kept her face neutral. Give me 5 minutes. She dressed carefully in a navy blue sheath dress and heels. If this was the end, she'd face it with dignity. Dante's office was on the second floor, overlooking the gardens. He sat behind a massive mahogany desk, reading something on his laptop. He didn't look up when she entered. Sit, he said. Elena sat in one of the leather chairs facing the desk. She folded her hands in her lap to hide their trembling. I have a meeting today, Dante said, still not looking at her. Important people. Investors, business partners, some family associates. They're curious about my new wife, finally. He raised his eyes to meet hers. You're coming with me. Of all the things she'd expected, this wasn't it. Why? Because you're my wife. And I need them to see that. He closed the laptop. This marriage needs to look real, Elena. That means you sit beside me, you smile, and you play your part. Can you do that? She thought about Vincent's suspicions, about Marco's betrayal, about how she was balanced on a knife's edge between protection and destruction. Yes, she said. I can do that. The meeting was held at an exclusive restaurant in Manhattan, the kind where there's no menu and reservations are made 6 months in advance. Dante had rented out the entire private dining room. 8 men sat around the table when they arrived. All older, all wearing expensive suits, all watching Elena like vultures circling prey. Dante pulled out a chair for her, right beside his at the head of the table. She sat, feeling every eye on her. Gentlemen, Dante began. This is my wife, Elena. A man with silver hair and a hard face leaned forward. So the rumors are true. The altar abandonment wasn't humiliation. It was an upgrade. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Lucky girl. Frank, Dante's voice carried a warning. What? I'm congratulating her. Frank's gaze slid over Elena dismissively. Though I have to wonder what she brings to the table besides a pretty face and a bankrupt shipping company. The other men chuckled. Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks. Frank runs waste management in New Jersey, Dante said to Elena, his tone neutral. He's very good at identifying garbage. The chuckles died. Frank's face reddened. The Martinez Logistics Network, another man interrupted, younger, with slicked-back dark hair and calculating eyes. It's hemorrhaging money. 3 major clients dropped them last quarter. Why would you tie yourself to that liability, Dante? Elena felt Dante tense beside her. This wasn't just curiosity. They were challenging his judgment, questioning his decision to marry her. Because he sees potential where others see problems, Elena heard herself say. Every head turned toward her. The dark-haired man smirked. That's so? Enlighten us. What potential does a failing company with $15 million in debt offer? Elena's mind raced. She'd spent months trying to save her father's company, studying every contract, every route, every client. She knew that business inside and out. You're right, she said calmly. We lost 3 major clients. Target, Whole Foods, and Nordstrom. Want to know why? The man's smirk faltered slightly. Because we couldn't guarantee delivery times anymore. Our warehouse in Newark burned down last year. Suspicious fire. Investigation went nowhere. We lost 30% of our storage capacity overnight. She leaned forward slightly. But we still have contracts with 15 regional distributors, established routes through 6 states, and relationships with customs officials at every major port from Boston to Baltimore. Infrastructure that would take your competitors years and millions to replicate. She turned to Frank. You mentioned waste management. Martinez Logistics has refrigerated trucks that run mostly empty on return trips. We could transport specialty waste, medical, industrial, at premium rates. That's a $3 million revenue stream nobody's tapping. Frank's expression shifted from dismissive to interested. Elena addressed the whole table now. A failing company isn't a liability if you know how to fix it. It's an opportunity. And Dante saw that she glanced at her husband. He always sees 3 moves ahead. The room was silent. Then the dark-haired man laughed. Genuine this time. Well played, he said, raising his wine glass. To Mrs. Russo, who apparently has a spine after all. The others joined the toast. Even Frank looked grudgingly impressed. The conversation shifted to business, territory discussions, percentage negotiations, things Elena didn't fully understand. But she'd done enough. She'd proven she wasn't just decorative. When the meeting ended 2 hours later, Dante placed his hand on the small of her back as they walked to the car. His touch was brief, professional, but there was something different in it. Acknowledgement, maybe. They drove in silence for 10 minutes before Dante spoke. The refrigerated truck idea. That was smart. It was obvious, Elena said quietly. If anyone had bothered to look. Vincent thinks you're a spy. Dante's tone was conversational, like he was discussing the weather. He thinks the Calabreses planted you to destroy us from the inside. Elena's stomach dropped, but she'd known this was coming. And what do you think? Dante was quiet for a long moment, watching the city blur past the window. I think, he said finally, that a spy wouldn't have just helped me secure Frank's loyalty. A spy wouldn't have made me look stronger in front of men who are questioning my judgment. He turned to look at her. I think you're either the best actress I've ever met, or you actually want this to work. I want to survive, Elena said honestly. And right now, your success is my survival. Something flickered across Dante's face. Respect, maybe. Or the beginning of trust. Good, he said. Because things are about to get much worse before they get better. What does that mean? Dante's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his jaw tightened. It means the Calabreses just made their next move. The docks were still burning when they arrived. Orange flames licked up into the night sky, consuming 3 massive warehouses. Fire trucks lined the pier, their hoses barely making a dent. The smell of burning chemicals and charred wood choked the air. Elena could feel the heat from 50 yards away. Dante stood at the edge of the police barricade, his face carved from stone. Vincent was beside him, phone pressed to his ear, barking orders. Other men in suits surrounded them, soldiers. Elena had learned to call them. The muscle of the organization. How much? Dante asked, his voice deadly calm. 8 million in product, Vincent said, hanging up. Maybe 10. The insurance won't cover half of it. The shipments were off-book.
Elena understood.
Illegal. The kind of cargo that couldn't be reported to authorities. Who? Dante's question was simple, but the promise of violence underneath made Elena's skin prickle. We're working on it. But Dante, Vincent's expression was grim. Security footage shows someone accessed the warehouse at 2 a.m. Someone with clearance codes. Inside job, one of the soldiers muttered. Has to be. Dante's jaw clenched. Show me. They moved to a black SUV where a laptop was set up. Vincent pulled up grainy security footage. Elena watched over Dante's shoulder as a figure in dark clothing approached the warehouse entrance, punched in a code, and disappeared inside. 20 minutes later, They emerged and walked away. 30 seconds after that, flames appeared in the windows. Can you see their face? Dante asked.
No.
But we traced the access code. Vincent pulled up another screen, a log of security credentials. He pointed to one entry. That code belongs to Marco Martinez. Elena's world tilted. No, she whispered. That's not possible. Every head turned toward her. The soldier's expression shifted from neutral to hostile in an instant. Your brother had access codes? Vincent's voice was sharp. When did that happen? Elena's mind raced. I gave him temporary access 3 weeks ago, before the wedding. He was helping me inventory some of our family's stored goods in one of the shared warehouses. I never thought. You gave your gambling addict brother access to our facilities? Vincent's face flushed with anger. After everything I told you about his debts. That was before I knew. Elena turned to Dante, desperate. I didn't know about the gambling then. I didn't know about any of this. Dante said nothing. His silence was worse than shouting. She's been feeding him information, one of the soldiers said. The shipping schedules. The route changes. She's the leak. I'm not. $8 million up in smoke because you brought a traitor into this family, Vincent interrupted. And you want us to believe you're innocent. Check the timestamps. Elena's voice rose. Marco's code was used at 2 a.m. Where was he? Can you track him? Vincent worked the laptop for a moment, then cursed under his breath. His phone was off. No GPS data. Convenient. Or someone stole his code. Elena shot back. The Calabreses have been targeting my family. They paid Michael to humiliate me. They're giving Marco money. Maybe they got his access information too. Listen to her. Another soldier scoffed. Making excuses while our business burns. I say we cut our losses. A third one added, staring at Elena with open hostility. Her and the brother. Before they destroy everything. The words hung in the smoky air like a death sentence. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. She looked at Dante, searching his face for any sign of belief, of trust. His expression was unreadable. Boss, Vincent said quietly, we need to make a decision. If she's compromised, if her family is working with the Calabreses, we can't afford the risk. Not with this much at stake. Dante finally moved. He stepped closer to Elena, studying her face in the flickering firelight, looking for cracks, for lies. Did you know, he asked softly, did you know your brother was going to do this? No. Elena met his eyes, refusing to look away, even though everything in her wanted to run. I swear to you, I didn't know. Marco is stupid and desperate, but this, setting fires, destroying millions in product, this isn't him. How can you be sure? Because he'd never risk pulling me down with him. Her voice broke slightly. Marco may be weak, but he's still my brother. He wouldn't put me in the crosshairs like this. Someone is setting him up. Setting both of us up. Dante stared at her for a long moment. Elena could feel Vincent and the soldiers watching, waiting for their boss to give the order. To remove the threat. To eliminate the problem. Vincent, Dante said finally, not breaking eye contact with Elena. Find Marco Martinez. I don't care if you have to tear apart every casino and bar in the tri-state area. Bring him to me. Alive. And her? Vincent asked pointedly. She stays. Dante's tone left no room for argument. Under guard. If she tries to leave the estate, stop her. If she tries to contact anyone, I want to know about it. But she stays. Relief and fear warred in Elena's chest. She wasn't dead, but she wasn't trusted either. You're making a mistake, Vincent said, low enough that only Dante and Elena could hear. She'll destroy us. That's my decision to make. Dante turned back to the burning warehouses. Now find her brother. We're going to get some answers. Vincent walked away, the soldiers following. Elena stood alone beside Dante, watching $8 million burn, knowing that her life hung by an even thinner thread than her marriage. Elena, Dante's voice was soft but carried steel underneath. If you're lying to me, if you had any part in this, there won't be Anywhere you can hide. Do you understand? I understand, she whispered. Good, he pulled out his phone. Because the Calabreses just declared war. And you're about to learn what happens when you're on the wrong side of 1 inch. They found Marco 36 hours later in a motel outside Atlantic City, drunk and terrified. Elena was in the mansion's library when Dante's men dragged him through the front door. She heard the commotion, shouting, her brother's slurred protests, and rushed to the foyer. Marco looked terrible. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut. His shirt was torn and stained with what looked like blood. When he saw Elena, he started crying. I'm sorry, he sobbed. Elena, I'm so sorry. Shut up, Vincent shoved him into a chair in Dante's office. Elena followed, her stomach churning. Dante was already there, standing by the window, his back to them. Marco Martinez, Dante's voice was cold. You used access codes registered to you to enter our warehouse 2 nights ago. Shortly after, that warehouse burned. $8 million destroyed. Tell me why I shouldn't kill you right now. It wasn't me. Marco's words tumbled out in a panic. I swear, I didn't go to any warehouse. I was at the casino. Ask anyone, I was there all night. Your code was used, Vincent said flatly. Are you saying someone stole it?
Yes.
I mean, Marco wiped his face with shaking hands. They must have. The Calabreses, they. Start from the beginning, Dante ordered, finally turning around. And don't lie. Every lie makes this worse for you. Marco took a shuddering breath. Elena wanted to go to him, to hold her baby brother, like she had when they were kids. But she stayed frozen by the door. 6 months ago, I got in deep with a bookie, Marco began. 200 grand. They were going to kill me. Then this guy approached me, said his name was Luca, worked for the Calabrese family. Said they'd pay off my debt if I gave them information. What kind of information? Dante asked. Shipping schedules. Route changes. Stuff Elena mentioned about the Martinez company. I thought, his voice cracked. I thought it was just business intelligence. Corporate espionage type stuff. I didn't think anyone would get hurt. You didn't think, Vincent spat. That's your problem. But I stopped. Marco looked desperately at Elena. After the wedding, after I realized what Dante was, what this family was, I told Luca I was done. That I wouldn't give them anything else. And Dante's eyes were black ice. Marco's face crumpled. They showed me pictures.
Of Mom.
Coming out of her apartment. Getting into her car. Walking to church, he was shaking now. They said if I didn't keep cooperating, they'd make her suffer. They'd make Elena suffer. They said accidents happen all the time. Elena's blood ran cold. They gave me a phone, Marco continued. Told me to keep it on me always. 3 nights ago, they called. Said I had to give them my warehouse access codes. I refused at first, I swear I did, but they sent me a picture of Mom at the grocery store. A guy was standing right behind her in line.
Just.
Standing there. Smiling at the camera. He pulled out his phone with trembling hands and showed them. Elena looked over Dante's shoulder. There was their mother, oblivious, checking her shopping list. And behind her, a man in a leather jacket, staring directly at the camera with a predatory grin. They said if I didn't give them the codes, he'd follow her home, Marco whispered. So I gave them the codes. I thought they'd just steal something. I didn't know they'd burn it all down. The room was silent except for Marco's ragged breathing. Why frame him? Elena found herself asking. If they already had the codes, why use his specifically? Dante and Vincent exchanged a look. To turn us against each other, Dante said slowly. To make me think Elena and her brother were the traitors. To destroy my marriage and the alliance it represents. It's working, too, Vincent added, though his tone was less hostile now. We've been so focused on the Martinez family that we haven't been watching the Calabreses' other moves. Elena's mind was racing. Marco had been blackmailed, manipulated. He was guilty of stupidity and weakness, yes, but the real architects of this disaster were still out there, probably laughing at how well their plan was working. She looked at her brother, broken, terrified, pathetic. She loved him. But love didn't erase what he'd done. Love didn't bring back $8 million or rebuild trust. Then she looked at Dante, her husband of less than a week, a man she barely knew, a man who'd married her for business, who saw her as an asset, who could order her death with a single word. But also a man who'd given her a chance at the meeting with Frank. A man who'd told Vincent to find Marco alive instead of just eliminating the problem. Blood loyalty or survival. Past or future. Victim or player. Elena made her choice. I can prove it, she said suddenly. Everyone turned to her. I can prove the Calabreses set Marco up. I can prove they're behind everything. Her voice grew stronger. But I need access to Marco's phone records, the warehouse security system, and 24 hours. That's insane, Vincent said. We don't have time for her. Yes, you do, Elena stepped forward. Because right now, you think you know who your enemy is. But what if there's someone else involved? Someone inside your organization who helped the Calabreses get those codes? Someone who made sure the evidence pointed exactly where the Calabreses wanted it to point. Dante's eyes narrowed. You think we have a mole? I think this was too perfect, Elena said. Marco's codes used at exactly the right time. Security footage that shows everything except a face. Your men finding Marco, right where the Calabreses probably wanted him found. It's too clean. Someone's helping them. Vincent opened his mouth to argue, but Dante raised a hand. What do you need? He asked Elena. Trust, she said simply. 24 hours and trust. Dante studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded once. You have until tomorrow night. Vincent, give her everything she asks for. Marco stays in the basement until this is resolved. He looked at Elena. Don't make me regret this. Elena met his gaze. I won't. She just hoped she could keep that promise. Elena hadn't slept in 24 hours. She'd spent the night in Dante's office, surrounded by laptops, printouts, and cold coffee. Vincent had reluctantly given her access to everything: security logs, phone records, financial transactions. The pieces of the puzzle were all there. She just had to put them together. By dawn, she had it. Now she stood outside Dante's conference room, where he'd assembled his inner circle. 8 men who ran his empire, territory bosses, money managers, enforcers. Vincent was in there. So were the soldiers who'd called for her death at the docks. And in 30 seconds, she'd walk in and either prove herself or destroy whatever fragile credibility she'd built. Elena straightened her black blazer, lifted her chin, and opened the door. The conversation stopped immediately. Every eye turned to her. The hostility in the room was thick enough to choke on. Gentlemen, Dante said from the head of the table. My wife has something to present. You'll give her your full attention. It wasn't a request. Elena moved to the front of the room where a screen had been set up. Her hands trembled slightly as she connected her laptop, but her voice was steady. 3 nights ago, someone used Marco Martinez's access codes to enter our warehouse and set a fire that destroyed $8 million in product. She pulled up the security footage on the screen. You all saw this video. A figure enters at 2:07 a.m., exits at 2:31 a.m. At 2:33 a.m., the fire starts. We know all this, one of the territory bosses grumbled. Your brother's a rat. What's new? What's new, Elena said calmly, is that this isn't Marco. She clicked to the next slide, a frame-by-frame analysis of the footage. The person in this video is 5'11", weighs approximately 190 pounds based on their gait and build. Marco is 6'1" and weighs 165. The proportions are wrong. Could be the angle, Vincent said, but he was leaning forward now, interested. Could be. Except, Elena pulled up phone records. Marco's phone pinged off a cell tower in Atlantic City at 2:15 a.m. 8 witnesses place him at the Borgata Casino between midnight and 4 a.m. He was playing blackjack, losing badly, and drinking heavily. The casino has him on camera. She displayed a time-stamped casino photo showing Marco at a table, clearly drunk. So someone else used his codes, another boss said. Someone he gave them to?
Yes.
But who? Elena clicked to another slide. I pulled the warehouse security logs for the past month. Marco's codes were used legitimately 3 times, all in the afternoon, all logged properly. But look at this. She highlighted an entry. 2 weeks ago, someone accessed the security system administrator panel using Vincent's credentials. They created a mirror of Marco's access code, a duplicate that would register as Marco in the logs but could be used by anyone. The room went silent. Vincent stood up slowly. That's impossible. My credentials are encrypted.
Secure.
Nearly impossible to crack, Elena finished. Unless someone already had access to your computer. Someone who works closely with you. Someone you trust. She pulled up financial records. After the fire, I traced the shell company that paid Marco's gambling debts. It's registered in Delaware, owned by a holding company, which is owned by another company. 6 layers deep. But at the very bottom, she clicked through the corporate structure on screen, is a payment processing account. And that account made a transfer 3 months ago. $50,000. To Anthony DeLuca. Tony, the young soldier who'd knocked on her door, who'd been present at every meeting, who worked directly under Vincent. That's bullshit. Tony jumped to his feet. I've been loyal to this family for 8 years. Loyal enough to buy a BMW M for last month? Elena displayed the purchase record. On a salary of $60,000 a year? Loyal enough to put a down payment on a condo in Miami? Where did the money come from, Tony? Tony's face had gone pale. Investments. Investments from the Calabrese family, Elena said coldly. You gave them Vincent's credentials. You created the duplicate access code. You fed them information about our operations. And when they decided to burn the warehouse, you made sure all the evidence pointed at Marco, knowing we'd be too busy looking at the Martinez family to notice you. The room exploded. Soldiers moved toward Tony, who backed against the wall. Vincent looked like he'd been punched in the gut. You gave them my credentials? Vincent's voice was deadly quiet. You betrayed me? They were going to kill my sister. Tony shouted. They said they'd kill Maria if I didn't cooperate. What was I supposed to do? Come to us, Dante said, standing. His voice cut through the chaos like a blade. You come to your family. You don't betray us to save yourself. I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice, Dante nodded to 2 soldiers, who grabbed Tony's arms. You made yours. Now you live with it. Tony struggled, but they dragged him toward the door. Wait, Dante, please. I can fix this. I can. The door slammed shut behind them. The room was silent again. Dante turned to Elena. Is there more? She nodded. Tony's been feeding information to a Calabrese lieutenant named Luca Moretti, the same Luca who blackmailed Marco. I have phone records, encrypted messages, everything you need to move against them. She pulled up a final document, including the location of their next shipment. They're moving product through Port Newark tomorrow night. If you hit them there, you'll recover your losses and cripple their operation. Dante stared at the screen, then at Elena. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or respect. Vincent cleared his throat. Mrs. Russo, I owe you an apology. I was wrong about you. The other men murmured agreement. The hostility had evaporated, replaced by something else. Wariness, perhaps. Or recognition. Elena looked at Dante. Do I still have until tonight? Or can I keep my head? A ghost of a smile touched Dante's lips. You can keep your head. And Vincent, release Marco from the basement. He's an idiot, but he's not a traitor. As the men filed out, discussing the Port Newark operation, Dante approached Elena. You could have just given me the evidence, he said quietly. You didn't have to present it to everyone. Yes, I did. Elena met his eyes. Because they needed to see that I'm not a liability. They needed to know that being your wife means something. Dante studied her for a long moment. You just commanded a room full of killers, Elena. That's not nothing. I know, she said. Because I learned from the best. For the first time since she'd met him, Dante Russo smiled. A real smile. Welcome to the family, he said. For real this time. The Port Newark operation was a massacre. Not literally, Dante was too smart to leave bodies that would draw federal attention. But by the time his crew finished, the Calabrese family had lost $12 million in product, 3 warehouses, and their entire distribution network for the East Coast. Luca Moretti was arrested by the FBI an hour later, along with 6 other Calabrese lieutenants. Anonymous tips had flooded the bureau with evidence of drug trafficking, money laundering, and racketeering, all traced back to the Calabrese organization. Vittorio Calabrese himself disappeared. Rumor had it he'd fled to Sicily. Dante didn't bother chasing him. The message was clear enough. You come for the Russos, you lose everything. 3 weeks later, Elena stood in the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan, wearing a dress that cost more than her childhood home. The room was packed with over 200 people, family members, business associates, politicians, even a few celebrities. This wasn't a wedding reception. This was a coronation. Dante had called it a celebration of partnership. Elena knew what it really was, a public declaration that she belonged in this world, that she'd earned her place. She watched from the edge of the room as Dante worked the crowd, shaking hands, accepting congratulations on crushing the Calabrese threat. He moved through the space like a king surveying his kingdom, confident, powerful, untouchable. You clean up nice. Marco appeared beside her, holding 2 champagne glasses. He offered her one. Elena took it, studying her brother. He looked healthier than he had in months. Sober.
Clear-eyed.
Dante had sent him to a private facility in upstate New York, part rehab center, part fortress. Marco had spent 3 weeks there getting clean, and he'd emerged a different person.
How are you? She asked.
Better. Marco sipped his champagne.
I'm sorry, Anna.
For everything. For being weak. For putting you in danger. You were scared. People do stupid things when they're scared. That doesn't excuse it. He looked down. But I'm going to make it right. Dante's giving me a job, legitimate work with a shipping company. I'm going to rebuild what Dad left us. I'm going to make you proud. Elena touched his arm. Just stay clean, Marco. That's all I want. He nodded and drifted back into the crowd. Mrs. Russo, Vincent approached, looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. Mr. Russo wants to see you. On the terrace. Elena's heart skipped. She made her way through the crowd to the outdoor terrace overlooking Central Park. Dante stood at the railing, silhouetted against the city lights. You wanted to see me? She asked. He turned, and something in his expression made her breath catch. It was softer than usual, almost vulnerable. Do you remember what I said to you at the wedding reception? He asked. About being my investment. Yes. I was wrong. He stepped closer. You're not an investment, Elena. You're not property. You're not a pawn in some game. What am I then? Dante reached out and took her hand, the same hand he'd held at the altar a month ago. But this time felt different. This time felt real. 3 weeks ago, you could have run, he said quietly. When everyone thought you were a traitor, when Vincent wanted you gone, you could have left, disappeared, started over somewhere safe. I thought about it, Elena admitted. But you didn't. You stayed. You fought. You proved yourself in front of men who've spent decades in this life. His thumb traced circles on her palm. You saved my organization, Elena. You exposed a traitor I never would have found. You turned a disaster into a victory. We did it together, she said. No, Dante's voice was firm. You did it. You commanded that room. You made them see you as more than just my wife. You made them see you as essential. He released her hand and pulled something from his pocket, a small velvet box. Elena's pulse quickened. This isn't a proposal, Dante said, opening the box to reveal a platinum ring with a massive emerald surrounded by diamonds. We're already married. This is a promise. He slipped it onto her right hand, beside her wedding band. When I married you, it was for business, he continued. A transaction. A way to protect assets and consolidate power. But somewhere between the altar and tonight, something changed. He cupped her face gently. They tried to ruin you, Elena. Michael, the Calabreses, all of them. They wanted to break you. humiliate you, destroy you. His eyes searched hers. But you just saved us all. Elena felt tears prick her eyes, not from sadness or fear, but from the overwhelming realization of how far she'd come. A month ago, she'd been abandoned at the altar, worthless and humiliated. Now she stood on a terrace overlooking Manhattan, wearing diamonds, married to one of the most powerful men on the East Coast. And she'd earned every bit of it. "I'm not a victim anymore," she whispered. "No," Dante's smile was genuine warm. "You're queen." He led her back inside to the ballroom. The crowd parted as they entered. Dante raised his hand, and the room fell silent. "Thank you all for coming tonight," Dante's voice carried across the space. "A month ago, I married this woman to protect business interests. But tonight, I stand before you to say something different." He turned to Elena, taking both her hands. "Tonight, I introduce you to my true partner, my equal, the woman who saved this family from destruction and proved that the Russo Empire isn't just mine anymore." He raised their joined hands. "It belongs to both of us." The room erupted in applause. Elena saw Vincent nodding with respect, Frank raising his glass, the territory bosses acknowledging her with genuine approval. She wasn't decoration. She wasn't a pawn. She was the heart of the empire. Dante leaned close, his lips brushing her ear. "Ready for this life, Mrs. Russo?" Elena looked out at the crowd, the power players, the dangerous men, the glittering world that had nearly destroyed her but had instead forged her into something stronger. She squeezed Dante's hand. "I was born ready,"